Defense. The action of defending or resisting attack. A non-lethal way of safeguarding allies. Unmanned, a castle is powerful and by itself can slow an assault. Without anyone actively repelling the attackers, however, even the strongest castle will eventually fall. But what if you give the castle an anti-infantry machine gun? Well, you might say something along the lines of using a bomber plane. What if the attackers use anti-air mines? Send an assassin. The defense adapts. The attacker uses an ultra-high velocity railgun. Defenders use an energy shield. Long-range high-explosive bombers. Ultra-long-range anti-material sniper rifles. Attacker adapts. Defender adapts. Globe Gear has a somewhat common strategy called Fortress. Generally, it involves the rather infuriating combination of the least interactive weapons available, where every player on the team practices social distancing, DayZ style. A deadly pairing of traps and long-range weapons, often taking over high ground before raining down from above with damaging long-range fire. So what could we do to deal with this very strong strategy? Well, as said by Sun Tzu.
What's up, my fellas? It is me, Sun Tzu, here to hit you with a dankers quote. Here goes my G. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Follow It's Flicked on YouTube for more dankers quotes.
Right then, let's start with the enemy. The basic strat of Fortress is to set up in the early game, fending off any attacks while building a trap zone. Then they try and build a lead before fully retreating into the zone and spamming from a long range. If players attempt to push in, the Fortress players can kite around traps to find a stun, stay and fight in heavily advantaged locations, or run away and temporarily hide. There are many options available in the densely trapped area. If players try to counter from a distance, the Fortress player generally takes a more advantageous long-range position on the map, and they will often have more long-range capabilities than any other team. A Fortress team could also have some close-range specialists, able to harass teams that try not to interact with them, or dominate teams who dare to enter the trap zone. The neat thing about Fortress is that it can be made quite easily with a relatively disorganized team. It doesn't take much to sit in a trapped up area and spam long-range attacks. If they notice that their team has more or equal long-range threats and have a trapper, Fortress is a pretty obvious viable strategy. So what can we do to take down the Fortress? Well, first, as Sun Tzu has said, we need to know ourselves. Make sure you know your own loadout and are at least familiar with how your own gears work. Then you need to be sure to know your allies' loadouts, or ask before the game begins. Find their preferred playstyle and all that fun stuff. Become buddies. Good morale is always good. Right, now we know your teammates, we can finally take down that damn Fortress, right? Wrong! You've got to have a strategy and a win condition, which will then change because Fortress is a dumb combo. If you haven't already, watch the win condition video I made, it will be useful. A team full of snipers is going to win differently to a team full of attackers. Probably. Looking at Fortress, we can see a few clear weaknesses. This becomes a lot looser in larger teams with more versatile capabilities. Fundamentally, Fortress takes a little bit of time to set up. If you can find an enemy trapper early and spot their sniper, assume you are fighting a Fortress team. Fortress can also be map dependent. Bad sniping locations can lead to a worse setup. It may also suffer if the other team has overwhelming close-range firepower. It also begins to fail if the other team gains the lead. Now let's exploit each of these weaknesses in depth. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is a Globe Gear Fortress. This is built in 5 minutes. That 5 minutes is a chance for an aggressive team, If you are a team full of attackers, casters, and aggro gunners, there is no reason not to push in the first few minutes of the game if you know that the opponent has a trapper and a sniper. If you are early enough and strong enough, you can snowball the lead into a crushing victory, or claim enough of a lead for Fortress to no longer be a viable strategy. There will be traps, but not many. There will be some close range threat, but probably not as much as your team. It's definitely risky because you may give away the lead and allow the Fortress team to be very comfortable, but if you give them time, the defences will simply get stronger and stronger. Your pick. You know what else a Fortress lacks? Mobility. Last time I checked, you can't exactly move a terrain around in Globe Gear. Unless the other team invents a method to throw existing traps across the map, you should be safe from the immovable Fortress suddenly changing location. This gives your team something very important: map control. This does often depend on the map generation, but generally the Fortress team controls less of the map than the other. Instead, they control one specific spot really well. Friendly snipers can roam around and peek from pretty much any angle they want, and an attacker has plenty of space to walk up to the edge of the zone without being contested. If you do manage to wipe a Fortress team, you could consider claiming the Fortress as your own if it's a multi-team game, or leaving some stealth players behind to ambush the enemy team trying to reclaim their Fortress. If you have a trapper of your own, consider using the hippity-hoppity your spot is my property technique. The other team is probably more defensive than you are, so use traps aggressively to reclaim some space and deny the most annoying sniping spots. I recommend using an escort to help defend the trapper as they do this, or let the trapper use Crypsis if they think that energy is an optional requirement. Speaking of energy, the enemy trapper is going to run out of energy if you pile up enough pressure. As long as the other sniper has no real barrier counter, maintaining close range pressure should allow for the enemy trapper to run out of energy before anyone else in the lobby. Take your free kill, or remove the traps once this has been done. At most, they can only place 890 caltrops. That's doable. If the teams are both low on deaths and you have substantial defences, feel free to turn the attack on the Fortress into a siege. And if you want siege tactics, you can go read a history book. I know some players will be bored if we do things this way. These strategies are all slow at some point unless you completely snowball the aggro strat. The nature of Fortress slows down the game a lot. Real castles suck to attack. So what can we do to speed things up? Taking out the main defences perhaps. The traps are difficult to remove. Good practice is removing the trap with an efficient weapon when there is downtime. But if you can, why not remove the source of the traps? Or their pesky sniper? Or even take out their main close range fighters so the team can push up. With sufficient sneakiness and awareness, I'm sure you can sneak up on players pretty easily. What if we used the strategy that made the Fortress team adapt to us, instead of us adapting to them? If you can think of one, good job, I haven't thought of it yet. This is something that you will have to come up with on a situational case-by-case basis. Use something so dastardly, so egregious, that the Fortress team has no idea what hits them. Use the 5-stack elevator strat, boost the sniper to a stupid spot, hide in a corner as a full team. Think of something that only works in that specific map generation against these specific opponents that will only work with your specific team setup. Any creative play or idea in a match is often game changing. Go for it, blow up the ceiling, cut down the tower, hit your wallbang, bounce the explosive battle rifle off of a wall to perfectly land on your enemy when they're in a trapped up house. Sorry, I just had to shield that clip. Creativity will win the fight, even if it only works once. And with that stupid note encouraging people to make dumb plays, that concludes my video on taking down the Fortress. I hope someone takes this extremely literally and just tries to blow up any Fortress players they see. Feel free to argue with me in the comments section of this video, and then like and subscribe as well or something. I don't really know, I'm not a full-time YouTuber. Thanks for watching.